Hello everyone, I'm Andy and I'm in a very peculiar position this week. This is Strange Stuff Podcast and I'm sitting here all alone, which is why this episode I've decided to call Solo Mio. I don't know exactly what's happened to Mark this week. He just told me that he wouldn't be available from Monday through Thursday evening. And as we record on Monday morning and Thursday morning, kind of left me in the lurch. So I thought I'd ask Richard to help. And then I realised Richard is also away on holiday with his daughter for a week. So there you have it. It's just me on my own. But I figured as Richard isn't here to cover, he wouldn't mind if I used him in his absence. Now, I don't know if any of you remember, a couple of years ago now, we did an episode called Demon Sheep, I think it was called. And it was about possessed sheep in Wales and a murder and some clandestine lovers. But the whole thing at the end turned out to be a fake story because it was all invented and written by Richard, which shocked Mark. And it was just really well written. And I asked Richard if he had any more stuff written down, and he sent me a load, which I then ignored for 2 years until this week. And I had a little browse through, and I've picked a couple of things that he wrote, and I hope you'll enjoy them as much as I did. A couple of them are basically memories from his time in Soho. And then there's a story at the end, which is of his own personal imagination. So let's see how it goes. The first one is from his time as the manager of the Borderline. So, if you like watching human drama, turn off your telly and get a job as a nightclub manager. Because not a night goes by without some hoo-ha or other to rival Love Island or Big Brother. There's a lot of mundane shit like I've lost my purse and my name should be on the guest list, don't you know who I am? Well, fuck me, I'm feeling attacked now. But that's interspersed with sex pests that have to leave, a couple who've decided to end their relationship at the bar, coked up wankers who got busted snorting in the loos, fights over who's fucking who, asthma attacks, diabetics who forgot to take their insulin, dance floor injuries, and prima donnas of every shape and size looking for attention. Now, after a while, this stuff becomes your norm. It's just your bread and butter, quickly forgotten. You're always living in the moment, so once a problem is dealt with, you move on to the next one, and most don't make it to your long-term memory. Every so often, though, you get a real doozy that stays with you forever. It was the 90s, and I ran a club in Soho. It was the era of grunge and Britpop, New Labour and cocaine. Everybody was partying like it was 1999, and it was all beautiful and marvellous, as long as you didn't look too closely at the cracks. Thursday night was rock night. Virtually every club in Soho had some kind of rock night on, so it was wall-to-wall, long hair and short skirts, bikers and skateboarders, mascara and tattoos, glam, grunge, punk, thrash, industrial and alternative. If they were into rock, they were out on a Thursday. This particular Thursday, I was called to the door to deal with a fight. I got there to find two dwarf lads in their late teens or early 20s who'd been fighting with each other. Evidently, they'd been knocking 7 bells out of one another on the dance floor, but nobody else had been involved. I'm a live and let live kind of person, so I had a word and they apologised. I gave them the stern lecture, do it again in your bard, etc., and sent them packing with the promise that they could come back next week. That was that. And I thought no more about it until a few weeks later when I found myself in the foyer with the same 2 lads and exactly the same scenario. And this is where things deviated from the norm. Had it been anybody else, they would have been out, banned for life. Take your shit elsewhere. I don't have time for your bollocks, and that would have been the end of it. But these two were dwarfs, and right or wrong, PC or not, I took pity on them. I'm not Mr. Super Sensitive, but it's not hard to see that life is going to be tougher still when you're only 3.5 feet tall. Being a dwarf might be okay if you own a gold mine, but there's not many of them that actually do. This time, they got the longer, sterner, do not ever fuck with me again lecture, and I barred them for 2 weeks. One of the doormen told me I was getting soft, but he only half meant it. Life moved on, and a few weeks went by. Then one night, I'm stood at the bar, and lo and behold, these same two kick off on each other right in front of me, and they're going at it hammer and tongs again. There was no finesse or skill, just a mad flurry of blows and kicks and punters scrambling to get out of the way. I'm ashamed to say, but Fuck. Hello? Hello?
Hello, how is weather up there?
Alexa, what's the temperature?
Right now, it's 13 degrees Celsius. Today, expect a high of 16 degrees.
It's sort of a bit rainy looking, but it's not raining.
I'm packing, I need to know what I'm gonna wear.
Well, it's been sort of horrible the last couple of days, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say clothes, definitely clothes.
Wherever.
Yeah.
Speak.
I would talk to you longer, but I'm actually recording. You're on tape at the moment.
Sorry, well, tell Mark hi. I'm gonna get back to packing.
Oh no, Mark's disappeared. It's just me.
Is it Richard?
No, Richard is also away on holiday with his daughter.
So is it just you?
It's just me today.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Well, say hi to yourself then.
I will. Thank you.
And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, where were they? I'm ashamed to say that I grabbed them both by the scruff of the neck like they were a couple of schoolboys. What the fuck was I supposed to do? The keg room was the nearest place, so I dragged them both in there. What the fuck gives with you two? I yelled. You've had 2 more chances than most, yet here we are again. Why the fuck do you keep doing this? We've got nowhere else to fight, mate, one of them replied. And that sort of threw me a bit. What do you mean? You've got nowhere else to fight? How often do you fight? Why are you fighting in the first place? What the fuck? It's complicated, mate, says the other one. That's okay. I can follow complicated, I replied. And if I don't get some kind of explanation, I'll have no choice but to ban you for life. You understand? I got an animated chorus of, no, mate, please, mate, don't do that. We got nowhere else to go. Are you banned from all the other clubs? I asked. Yeah. For fighting? Yeah. I should have just kicked him out, but some deep-rooted parenting instinct in me saw 2 small kids, not a couple of pain-in-the-arse adults, and I asked, why do you fight, lads, and why always each other? One of them jabs a thumb at the other and says, he's me best mate, and he's fucking my ex-girlfriend. She dumped me for him. That's awkward, I said. Innit, said the other. So why hang out together? I asked. 'Cause dwarf best mates ain't that easy to find, said the first one. Or dwarf girlfriends, said the other. Fuck you, screamed the first one, and off he went again, arms windmilling and me climbing on beer kegs to avoid getting hit. Oi, I shouted, cut it out or you're out of here. They stopped throwing punches, but then they pushed each other and I nearly burst out laughing because the whole thing was pretty surreal from the off, but the pushing and shoving made me think of Time Bandits and I nearly wet myself. What? I'm only human, for fuck's sake. Is there no other way to resolve this, I asked. Can't you get your anger out some other way? Can't you mosh like every other kid out there? I waved vaguely towards the club. We're knee-high, mate, one replied. We've tried. I've had my nose broken twice. Look, the other one said, it fucking sucks being a dwarf. Everybody treats you like a cunt. People either blank us, or they talk to us like kids, or fucking cripples. My boss is a prick. His job sucks. It's hard to get served at the bar because, like most fucking things, it's too fucking high. And it's impossible to get fucking laid. We get angry, the other one said. A lot. So we hit each other, said the first, because no other cunt will fight us. Like most people of regular height, I'd never thought a lot about the problems faced by dwarfs. I'd never known one and didn't cross paths with them often. But these two had just given me an insight that made me very glad I'm 6 foot tall. Now, just as an aside here, I'm not entirely sure that Richard isn't trying to squeeze an inch on us. Anyway, so this is like Dwarf Fight Club, I asked. Yeah, they both replied. Why do it in here, I asked. Isn't there anywhere else you can fight? People leave us alone in metal clubs, said Twice Broken His Nose. Other places, people pull us apart or call the cops. It's fucking humiliating when big pricks pick us up like we were kids. It makes me fucking furious. And I could see that fury in his eyes, and it didn't take much imagination to see how belittling it would be. If I kick you out, will you still fight? I asked. Yes, they both replied. And if I let you carry on coming here, will you still fight? Yes, they both chorused again. It was a pickle. Kicking them out would just make me another shithead big person. But I couldn't let them carry on fighting in the club. It didn't look good, and it sent the wrong message to others as to what was permissible. That's when I had an idea that would have been considered very un-PC even then and would get me slaughtered and cancelled on social media now. It was also an idea that broke several health and safety and licensing laws, but what the fuck? I ran a rock and roll nightclub in Soho, and this was a rock and roll solution. Right, I said, here's what we'll do. How often do you fight? Every 6 weeks or so, one replied. In that case, every 6 weeks, you'll come and see me, and I will let you batter the shit out of each other backstage where no one can see you and you won't bother anybody. How's that? Seriously? One said. The other one just grinned at me and said, fuck yeah. And that is how I came to run the world's only dwarf fight club. Well, possibly, because we all know the first rule of Fight Club. Was it wrong of me? I don't know. It was something of a grey area, but it solved the problem for all of us. Nobody but passing staff saw them fight, so I wasn't exploiting them. They got to fight, which they were going to do anyway, and I was free to look for lost purses and tell dickheads they weren't on the guest list. It was a solution that worked for all concerned. How often does that happen? Now, that is a true story. I do feel sorry for the guys. Luckily, I'm 6'2" with eyes of blue, so I would never have that problem. So on to our next little memory of Richard, and this one's a little bit more poignant, and it brings back a memory from me, which I'll share with you afterwards. This one is simply called Kathy. It was one of those dark and dirty days when the clouds were so low you could reach up and touch them. Walking the city streets was like being lost in a subterranean labyrinth where every umbrella could hide a minotaur. The rain was that miserable fine drizzle that leaches in through every gap in your clothes and soaks you more than the heaviest downpour. It was only 3:30 in the afternoon, but it was already dark. The street lights were on, but they were nothing more than glowing orange orbs floating in the gloom, providing no light. It was what my mate calls Jack the Ripper weather. I was walking through Soho Square when I saw her. She was sat on the steps of the 20th Century Fox building. Initially, she was just a wraith in the gloom, an indistinct blob bathed in the wan light of the famous movie logo. But as I drew closer, I saw she was a young woman, hugging her knees and sobbing her heart out. She was sheltering as best she could in a sunshade beach tent, and between that and the rucksack, She was clearly another of London's growing army of homeless wretches. "Are you all right?" I asked. "Is there anything I can do to help?" She looked at me and then looked down, embarrassed, as only an English person can be when caught expressing such emotion. She stifled her sobs, trying to wipe away the tears with her wet hands and trying to tidy her sodden hair. That last gesture, along with the fact that her clothes and rucksack were in relatively decent nick, told me she hadn't been on the streets for that long. "I'm okay, thank you," she got out between half sobs, still trying to wipe her eyes, but only succeeding in making them wetter. "The rain and the gloom made me miserable. I'm sorry." "You've got nothing to be sorry for," I said. "Being homeless is enough to make anyone cry, even on a sunny day. In this weather, it must be hell." "It's awful," she said, choking on the words as another sob escaped her. "I've never been so miserable in all my life." The expression on her face near broke my heart. It was like watching a kitten drown. "Have you been on the streets long?" I asked. She wiped her nose on her sleeve. "Almost 3 months," she replied. "How did you end up here?" I said, "if you don't mind me asking. You don't look like the type to end up homeless." She started to cry again. I waited as she calmed herself. "I was a teacher's assistant," she finally said between sobs. "I worked in a primary school in Finchley. I was there for 4 years, but government cuts meant they couldn't afford my job anymore, and I lost my job just before Christmas." She fought back more tears, and I didn't know what to say. I didn't have any savings, and when I explained to my landlord why I couldn't pay the rent, he kicked me out. "I'm not sure he was allowed to do that," I said. "I don't think so either," she replied, "but he suggested that we could, instead of rent." She looked down, embarrassed and ashamed, as if this was her fault. "Jesus Christ," I cursed, appalled by her words. "Is there no decency left in this bloody country?" "Not of late," she sighed. "Don't you have any family you can stay with?" I asked her. "My mum died 2 years ago," she said, quietly, the words clearly still painful. "I went to stay with my sister, but she doesn't really have the room, and her husband started flirting with me. We had a massive row, and she kicked me out." "Christ, that's harsh," I said. "Does she know you're on the streets now?" "She's 7 years older than me, and we have different dads. We were never close, and she didn't really want me there in the first place. Ever since Mum died, she just didn't really want to know." "And your father?" I asked. "He left Mum when I was a baby. I've never met him," she shrugged. As usual, when confronted with the misery of life, I wanted to wave a magic wand and fix all her problems. Sorry, my cat's killing me. But as I didn't have a magic wand, I did the only thing I could and gave her £20. She looked at me in amazement and said, "Are you sure?" I nodded. She beamed at me, held up the note, and then hugged it to her chest like a child with their favourite teddy bear. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," she said. "You have no idea how much this means to me." "Will it get you into a hostel for the night?" I asked. "Oh no," she said. "I don't like those places, too many weirdos. No, this is much better. Tonight I will be an adult for the first time since I became homeless." She gave me a sour look and said, "The worst thing about being homeless is the humiliation of paying for everything in coins. I feel so pathetic counting out pennies while shopkeepers give you that look like you're just an annoying child. There's no dignity in counting out £4 or £5 in coppers and 5p pieces. I hate it. It takes so long, and I feel myself shrink because the shopkeeper looks angry, and I know the people behind me are cursing me for making them wait." She shivered and then smiled at me again. "I'm going to keep this safe tonight. I know a place to sleep, and I will sleep well for the first time in months, knowing that in the morning I will be able to pay for breakfast like a grown-up and still have a £10 note in my pocket." She gave me a cheeky grin and started packing up her shelter. In moments, she was ready to leave. "My name's Kathy," she said, taking my hand in both of hers. "Thank you for your kindness. I shan't forget this." "Take care of yourself, love," I replied, and she was gone, swallowed up by the dark and the rain. I walked through Soho Square the following day, but she wasn't there. I kept an eye out for her over the next few weeks, but I never saw her again. I think of her often, and I hope that she made it to a better place. Now, I remember one particular New Year's Eve, I was out with my old mucker, Scouse Mick, and we'd probably had a blinding party night, no doubt. And we were walking the streets of Soho, probably 4 o'clock in the morning, and there was a guy sleeping in a doorway, wrapped in a sleeping bag, and it was bloody cold. Anyway, me, being Mr. Good Samaritan, started prodding him, scared him awake. He must have shit his pants, thought he was going to get his head kicked in at 4 o'clock on New Year's Day. Woke him up and gave him a £20 note. And he was very grateful. He put it away and then turned back over and tried to go back to sleep, I guess. I wasn't always very good with homeless people because I didn't like being begged while I was walking along the street. So if someone was asking me for £1 or 50p on the street, they would get no joy, because the fact of the matter is 90% of the people who are asking you for money only want it to do what you're doing, basically buy alcohol and take drugs, which I needed my money for. And also they're sort of homeless by choice. But the ones who are actually sleeping in doorways, they are people in need. That's why I felt like it was okay to wake him up and do my little bit. I remember the last time I was in London, it was a few years ago now, about 7 or 8 years, and I was in Carnaby Street, sitting outside the Shakespeare's Head with my brother and my old mate Kevin, and we were just people watching and just drinking beers and talking crap while I was visiting the old town. And there were literally a queue of beggars at every table waiting to take their turn to ask for money, but they were a different breed of beggar than I was used to. I don't know if it's like they're taking spice or whatever kind of drugs they're taking now, but they just look like the Walking Dead. They look aggressive, they act aggressive, they don't like no, and they just don't go away. It's just disgusting now. It's like sitting outside a pub in Soho is no longer as enjoyable as it used to be. But, you know, that's life. I'm not going to say it's progress, because it's certainly not that. Anyway, that was 2 memories from Richard of his Soho days. I'm sure there's plenty more. And if you enjoyed them, maybe we'll ask him to share some more. We've all got stories. Some of them you can tell on a podcast, and some of them you really can't, because even today there would be repercussions. But anyway, now we're going to delve into the realms of Richard's imagination. And it's a story he wrote, a short story called There's No Wolf Like an Old Wolf. Now, you'll have to excuse me if I do go into an accent or two. I can't help myself sometimes. Brynjar died this morning. He screamed all night, lost in his agony, begging Odin to free him and welcome him to Valhalla. The sound of a friend's straw death hurts more than any blade or axe wound. I know, for I have seen it too often these past few years. When he started screaming for his mother, I kicked his idiot Christian wife and that slimy fucking priest out of his house, put a sword in his hand and cut his throat. I sit on the hill overlooking the village and watch the last of my friends slowly limp up the path towards me. Nutch has to pause for breath too often, and Halfdan's crutch keeps slipping on the scree. Gunnar Freud and Vigo show less outward signs of distress, but they still plod rather than walk, just as I did earlier. It's partly grief, but it's mostly old age. My friends reach me and half sit, half collapse to the ground amid a chorus of grunts, groans and creaking joints. Fuck, says Gunnar, flopping onto his back with a long sigh. I remember when we used to run up this fucking hill for fun and roll back down, howling with laughter. Halfdan sighs. I think you'll have to roll me down today, boys. My bastard leg is killing me. None of us laugh. The arsling priest is kicking up a storm, Bragi, growls Vidjo. He says he's going to report you to Jarl Sigurd for murder. Fuck him, I reply. He let Brynjar suffer and would have me executed in the name of his non-violent and forgiving God. He's a hypocrite. In fact, his whole fucking religion is hypocrisy. I spit my disdain into the snow. Aye, says Freud. You speak the truth, Bragi, but that won't stop the little shit from stirring up trouble for you, or stop Jarl Sigurd from gutting you like a fish. I'd rather be gutted like a fish than die in agony in bed, with a fucking priest muttering his white Christ lies over me, I reply. I'm bored to death waiting for a slow bed death. I'd sooner Sigurd's blade than Brynjar's agony and shame. I too would welcome death, says Viggo, but as you say, not like that. He grimaces and shudders, no doubt recalling Brynjar screaming like a girl and shitting himself in his agony. It's no way to die, boys, he mutters, shaking his head. What else is there for old men like us? Asks Gunnar. Do you remember when we thanked Odin and Thor for letting us survive a battle and thought our dead friends unlucky? Says Knutch. Now I think it's us who are the unlucky ones. A straw death and no poems for us boys, and that makes me sad. Eva died over 20 years ago, but the young men still tell his tale around the fire. Eva was a prick, says Freud, and spits. Aye, says Knutch, but he's a prick that will be remembered long after we're gone and forgotten. We all sigh and stare into the distance. Fuck this, I say. Let's go Viking. Halfdan laughs. How the fuck can we do that? I can barely walk. Knutch can barely breathe. And the rest of you are no better. You can't even swing a sword, Bragi, unless your old shoulder wound has miraculously healed. I may not be able to swing my sword, I snarl, but I can still stab upwards with it, and last time I checked, that was still a lethal injury. Freud gives me a look that says he thinks I'm mad, and says, we'd have trouble sailing to the end of the fjord. We six have no chance of sailing to England, my old friend. Not England, I say. Just as far as Bolga Island and Sigurd's fucking monastery. And what will we do there? Viggo asks, one eyebrow raised. Sack it. Kill the monks and burn it to the fucking ground, I say. What else? That'll piss Sigurd off right royally, laughs Viggo. I'd pay all my gold to see his pinched and pious rat face if he heard that news. Halfdan laughs. Aye, that would be a sight worth seeing, and we just might. He'd send every carl he has after us to drag us before him, and I doubt our deaths would be any better than Brynjar's. I'm not planning on being taken alive, I say. They all stare at me. You're serious about this? Viggo asks. I am, I say. I'm done waiting for death, getting stiffer and more infirm each day. Last week, I woke needing a piss, but it took me so long to get out of bed, I pissed down my leg. I'm fucking glad my Freya isn't alive to see me soil myself. Halfdan shudders, and I suspect something similar has happened to him. So what's the plan? Vidjo asks. We raid and destroy Sigurd's monastery and then wait for him to come and slaughter us? Nope, I reply. If we're going to do this, let's give them something worth writing a poem about. Let's give them a story worthy of telling by a skald. How? Asked Gunnar. I smile for the first time in what feels like years. Not a polite little smile, but a huge fucking grin. We burn his monastery, I say. Then we burn every poxy Christian church between there and Sigurd's palace until his cows catch us. And then we fight the fuckers to the death and earn our place in Valhalla. Halfdan laughs. He looks at me and says, Braggy, that's the most beautiful, stupid, idiot plan I've ever heard, and I fucking love it. Bolga Island dead ahead, shouts Viggo from the bow of our ship. I know, Halfdan shouts back. We can all see it, you idiot. I can't, says Frode. I can't even see fucking Viggo. Lucky for you, the enemy will be up close when you skewer them, I laugh. It's been a glorious 4 days. We've had the wind in our sails, the sun has shone, and the waves have been kind and gentle. We feel more alive than we have in years. It feels good to be raiding again with old friends and the blessing of Thor and the Allfather. I feel the energy and joy of life course through my veins. It's been so long, I'd forgotten how delicious and delirious this feeling is. I throw my head back and let out a loud whoop. The others howl like wolves in reply, and we laugh until we're damn near puking. This is it. The bow of the ship hits the beach and I jump. There's a stabbing pain in my knees, and no doubt they would have folded under me if I were wearing chainmail, but we're in all leather armour. We decided before we sailed that chainmail would only slow us down and that none of us has the knees to take the weight anymore. Besides, chainmail is for young men who wish to survive a battle. It also helps that I'm drunk and high on mushrooms. We bought very little in way of supplies. Food and ale for a week, our weapons and armour, and 6 gallons of berserker potion, which Frode brewed before we stole our little ship and sailed into the night. That potion is now coursing through my veins, and I feel like a god, albeit a slightly tarnished one. As soon as my knees let me, I start to run up the beach. I look to my left and right, and my brothers are running with me. Well, perhaps trot would be a better word. But even Halfdan's thrown away his crutch, and he's hobbling for all he's worth up the shingle. We keep it up for a minute or two, but it's a bloody long beach, and Knutch is gasping for breath like a fish out of water. We slow down. There are no defenders, and I doubt very much that the monks even know that we're here. The potion burns in me, but I'm old enough to know that I'll need that power and energy for the killing. We finally hobble up to the monastery gates, and luck is on our side. It's one of the many prayer times the monks are addicted to, and there's not a soul to see us enter. We look at each other, and we grin like hungry wolves. The years drop away, and we let the power of the berserker juice flow. We burst through the door of the church, and the red slaughter begins. I've regained my senses, but by God, I wish I hadn't. Everything is agony, and Fenris has clearly shat in my mouth. I can't move. Every muscle screams. My head is pounding, and I need to vomit. Berserker juice gives you a bastard of a hangover, and I've pulled or strained every muscle I have. I have vague memories of physical feats that would have tested my body 20 years ago. Fuck knows what damage I've done to this aging sack of bones. I hear groans and curses all around me, and then someone pukes. This sets me off, and I roll over, screaming and vomiting at the same time, which is very unpleasant, to say the least. Viggo starts to laugh, so do I. Soon we're all howling. I'm face down in the sand. Everything hurts like a bitch and I can barely move, but life has never been better. We lay there for a long time, groaning and giggling, but finally Halfdan gets a fire going. As I finally force myself into a sitting position, Frode hands me a horn of ale. I down it in one and hold it out for a refill, I'm so thirsty I could drink the ocean. I look around. We're halfway down the beach. There's a keg of ale, which one of us had the good sense to grab from the monastery before we set it alight, and scattered around us is our loot. There's gold and silver crosses, bejewelled chalices, coins, chains, medallions, and other strange Christian devices scattered across the beach. It's enough to ransom a jarl. We're rich boys, says Knutsch, raising a gold cup in salute. Aye, we are, says Gunnar. But we fuck all to spend it on. What are we going to do with it? Bury it, says Freud. We bury it, then we tell as many people about it as we can. Let the fuckers hunt for the wolf horde for years to come. It will make a fine addition to our saga. Ha! You're not as dumb as your mother said you were, Freud, laughs Halfdan. But you're digging the bastard hole. My back is fucked. For the rest of the evening, we drink the monks' excellent ale and eat their food, bathed in the flickering light of their burning monastery. I hurt in ways I've never imagined possible, but this has been one of the best nights of my life. Excellent ale, good food, and the best friends a man could ask for. This is a taste of the joys of Valhalla, and if it's half as good as this, I look forward to getting there. It's the wolf light before dawn, and we're hobbling into our 6th Christian settlement. What better time for the old wolves to attack? And it hides the fact that we can barely walk. The berserker juice will kick in any minute, but it's all taking its toll. My right shoulder is agony, and I can hardly move my arm. My left hip is a ball of pain, and my neck is so stiff I struggle to move my head. I also have fucking piles, and my arsehole is itching like a bastard. The others are faring no better. No doubt the villagers are expecting us. Word travels far quicker than we do. I doubt they'll try and stop us, though. We killed 2 young converts in the second settlement we attacked. They tried to defend the church with swords and prayers, but fuck all skill or experience, and they died quickly for their efforts. We made it known before we left that place that we regretted their deaths, and that our argument was with the White Christ and his lick-spittle servants, not our own kind. We also gave them all the gold and silver that we stole from the church, and that proved to be a most excellent balm for their sorrow. Since then, no one has stood in our way. At the 4th settlement, those who follow the true gods gave us food and ale, and an old woman gave me a pot of sheep liniment and a lecherous wink, both of which helped loosen my aching joints. Every settlement has given us provisions since. Jarl Sigurd is clearly not a popular man, and respect for the old gods is still strong. It's a pretty enough church, says Freud. Prettier still when the fucker's burning, snarls Gunnar. He grunts as he hefts his axe, but his eyes blaze with joy. Today, the old wolves die. Thank Odin for that. I never wish to sit on an oak plank and pull an oar again. We all hurt. Everything is pain. Piles, sores, rashes and swollen joints. Today, we go to Valhalla and leave the trials of age behind. This is our 11th settlement, and finally, Jarl Sigurd's men are waiting for us. Took the fuckers long enough. We stand on a hill, overlooking the village, and howl like wolves, and cough like the old pricks that we are, as the sun crests the horizon. Below us, Sigurd's men rush from various huts and arm themselves. We don't have the energy to walk down to them, so we wait. Besides, we've set some sneaky traps for the Christian bastards, and we want to see how well they work. They won't kill many, but it will add to our legend, which, I'm glad to say, is becoming a saga fit for any feast hall. 4 villages ago, we heard the story of our 3rd raid. We slaughtered 100 Christian soldiers, they say. Perhaps we did. Things are hazy on berserker juice, and it's easy to miscount 6 priests when the air is thick with smoke and the cowards keep running around like headless chickens. By the 9th village, we'd killed thousands with our bare hands. That made us grin like idiots. It's good to know that we've written a tale that will be told around the fire and that our names will not be forgotten. What are you if you have no saga to be remembered by? Here they come, says Viggo. I can fucking see that, snarls Halfdan. I wasn't telling you, you prick, smiles Viggo. I was telling Fraud. He won't see them until they tread on his toes. Fuck you and the squirrel that sired your arseling, Frode replies, shoving Viggo and nearly knocking him off his feet. Don't fall over yet, you old fool, I say. Let's try and inspire some fear in these fucking idiots. Oh, they fear us, Gunnar smiles at me. I can hear their rancid Christian piss running down their legs from here. These poor fools are facing legendary warriors, Bragi, and they're close to shitting themselves. You hear that, you arseling pieces of cow shit? He shouts. You're about to fight true Norse warriors, and we'll only let one of you live so you can tell the story to that crab-infested fool that you call a Jarl. More than a few of them hesitate. They don't look happy, but they keep coming. Even young fools know it's grim to face men who are ready to die. I wish I could have got laid one last time, says Knutch wistfully. Ha, says Viggo. Your cock wouldn't know what to do with a cunny if it bit you. There'll be plenty of cunny for all in Valhalla, I say. Then let's hope my fucking wife's not there, growls Halfdan. It's hardly the funniest joke in the world, but Frode starts to laugh, and soon we're all laughing fit to burst, and the enemy are just a blur through my tears of mirth. Sigurd's carls look terrified now, but to their credit, they charge. I look around me at my band of decrepit old wolves, and I say, it's been a pleasure, my brothers. I'll see you at Odin's table for tonight's feast. Now, let's show this bunch of Sansadin how old warriors die. Shield wall! And that is the end of Richard's little story. Fabulous little tale of old men doing what they do best. Talking shit and wasting everybody's time. Great stories. So hope you enjoyed those tales, memories of Soho and the tale of the old wolves. Hopefully next week I will have some company and it won't be just me trying to entertain you. And I'd like to thank Richard for allowing us, whether he likes it or not, to share his memories and his mind. And have yourselves a strange week. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Please make memories and share them with others in a poetic and somewhat literary way. But I don't know, don't go sacking churches and killing Christians unless you really, really mean it. In the meantime, see you next week. Have yourselves a good one. Bye for now.